Hello, everybody, and welcome to my first podcast. I have not come up with a title yet, so title pending. I was thinking about a title, something like Ones and Zeros, but I don't know if I really like that, so I'm kind of just playing around with ideas at this point, but that was just one of them. But anyway, to get to the meat of it, I want to use this podcast to talk about pretty much whatever I want, mostly nerdy stuff. But it's mostly going to be focused on video games. And that's mostly just because I feel like in my life right now, I used to be able to talk about video games to coworkers or acquaintances and stuff, but where I am right now, none of my coworkers are much of gamers, and I just feel like I don't really get to talk about them that much, so I wanted to use this as a sort of platform to just throw all my ideas out there, my thoughts and opinions about the games, and just sort of whatever, maybe even news industry and stuff, and talk about that. But I didn't really want to restrict it to only video games. I did want to sort of keep it open that I could talk about anything else. So I could talk about, I guess, anime if I'm watching it, movies, and by movies I mostly just mean Star Wars because I never see any movies. It could be like tech news too. So really I just sort of wanted to keep it open so I could talk about really whatever I want, but again, it's mostly going to be about video games. And I guess I should also introduce myself since I'm almost 2 minutes in and I haven't said anything, but my name is Cory. On Twitch I'm going by Corehound Games, and that's mostly my handle on most things, but I'm just going to use my name Cory because I've never been really too particular on a specific handle or anything. Nothing ever really like came to mind to me. Even Corehound Games is just, you know, a direct ripoff of WoW, and when I used to be a hunter and had a Corehound, and I just liked that name. But anyway, yeah, I'm your host and only guest, Cory, because really I'm all that you need anyway. And for today, for our first topics, I wanted to talk about Star Wars Jedi: Fallen Order, which I have finished. I'm also going to be speaking about Pokemon Sword and Shield, specifically Shield, because that's the version I have, but you know, they're Pokemon games, so the same thing minus some exclusives. And we'll sort of round out the podcast by maybe talking about maybe Game of the Year contenders. I'm thinking really just topics for future episodes if I can't think of anything right away. But yeah, let's just get right into it. So, the first topic, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I think, for the most part, it's been reviewed pretty well. I know that some people have been pretty harsh on it, just because some people are saying that it's just sort of getting by on the Star Wars name alone, and if this was any other game, that people would not be nearly as forgiving for it. And, while I do agree with that, I also think that this game is genuinely good and is a very good time. It's some of the most fun I've had in a video game in a very long time. It's sort of like reminded me on, it's a little too deep, but it sort of like reminded me why I really like video games, and especially like exploring in video games. So, I don't know who would ever find this podcast and not know what this game is, but Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is basically a mismatch of a bunch of different ideas from other games with a Star Wars skin. So it sort of has exploration, sort of like, most people have been comparing it to like Uncharted games. So, you know, you're swinging on ropes, you're jumping on walls, doing that kind of stuff. It's definitely heavily inspired by Metroidvania style games, with the power-ups and returning to areas that you've already been to then progress further into those zones with your new power-ups, as well as very inspired by sort of Dark Souls-y sort of combat. And so with all that said, first of all, what I like about the podcast, what I like about Fallen Order is that I really actually do love exploring in this game. So I won't be doing any major spoiler stuff. I do want to talk about a spoiler sort of topic at the end here, but I'll warn you in case you don't want to be spoiled on anything or not finished with the game or whatever. But anyway, what I like about the game is that exploration. So if you have not played it, have not seen anything about it, you explore the game using those power-ups, like I said, jumping on vines, using your force powers to, interact with the world around you. Again, but mostly those things are not, it's not like a free-form open world, like you're lifting up boulders with your force and throwing them at people, or, blowing up doors with it. It's very sort of, I guess, scripted, but I don't know if that's the right word for it. It's very, like, interactive. Like, things literally give, like, a blue hue when you can interact with them and when you cannot interact with them, which just means that you don't have the correct power yet. They have, like, a slight red tinge to them. Mostly this comes from, like I said, ropes, doors that have like cracks in them, or like little areas that have that, or like maybe some broken rocks will like glow blue and you'll know you have to push your way through it. It's mostly stuff like that. Your two big things are force, push and pull, and then eventually, I guess mild spoiler for it, you get a double jump. I don't know if that considers or constitutes itself as a spoiler, but I guess if you consider abilities spoilers, then, whatever. Then maybe you shouldn't be listening to the game at all. But anyway, that's how those powers are how you're interacting with the world. And it's sort of, again, very Metroidy. So you have a map that you can open up at any time. And the map is great. I'll talk about that in a second. But basically you explore, and what you find when you explore, more than just, progressing the story and everything, and you get to the end of the planets or levels or whatever you want to call them, you find these echoes, and these echoes have little, just tiny story beats in them. And they're all like voice acted, and really every planet has like sort of like this own little story in these echoes. So you might be following the story of someone who lived on this planet before the Empire or something like that. You're basically following all these things, and your main character, Cal Kestis, can interact with these because he has like some rare force ability. I forget exactly what they call it, but he can sort of view these echoes of the force, sort of like listening to the past almost. Like the first way you see this is that Seer, one of your companions throughout the story, she has this sort of guitar looking thing, and Cal picks it up and starts playing a song that she wrote, years ago. So he can sort of feel events that have happened around him. So, you can find these little things and they give you little story beats. And I thought that was a really interesting way to sort of tell, not the main story, but it gives the world a chance to breathe. Like, it gives the world life to it. Like, it makes it feel like, oh, there were people here, and like they left these echoes of the Force behind that I can now hear, and I'm sort of following their journey as I follow, or as I discover these hidden areas and find these echoes. But anyway, those echoes you find, then there's also chests that you find. And then these chests have purely cosmetic, not even upgrades, just cosmetic changes you can do to either your character Cal, BD, your little robot guy, who is, quick aside, BD is one of my favorite Star Wars characters, not just Star Wars droid. I think they absolutely nailed like that magic of having this droid companion with you that you care about. And it's super heavy spoilers, but there's a point in the game where something is revealed about BD, and it just hits really hard because you care about this droid. You've been with this droid this whole mission, and he's, you know, just this fun little thing. All of his little animations are super well done. How he talks, just doing his little like beep boop things, and how in the subtitles it like just translates to, you know, like beep boop, all that kind of stuff. Like it doesn't actually have any words, but he just has a lot of character to him, and I really like him. But anyway, those going back to the chest, basically everything is either a costume or a color change. So Cal, you can either get lightsaber materials where you can sort of customize your lightsaber, you know, change its hilt, change its color, you know, that kind of stuff. You can get ponchos, which I almost never use because I think ponchos in that game are the ugliest looking things ever made cosmetically in a game. They're just the ugliest things ever. I don't know why a Jedi would wear them, but whatever, they're in the game. The other thing is there's like 4 or 5 or something like that. Like outfit changes for Cal, but really they're just sort of like minor palette swaps, or you're not really changing a whole lot about him. And then the other one is the BD skins, like I said before, which are also just like palette swaps. It's not like you're changing how BD looks or how he appears really, other than just like his paint job. And then you also can do the same thing for the ship that you use to travel around to different planets, so you can change that as well. And what I really liked is in games like Dark Souls and or any of those Souls-like games, I really do not like gear. I hate dealing with gear. I hate managing it. I hate trying to look for it. I hate having to try to like make a build that works with the game, and then, you know, worrying about, is this build even gonna work, or am I just, you know, screwing myself over for later? So yeah, I really enjoyed that the only upgrades that you do for Cal is through your talent tree. And so the talents work very much like in Dark Souls, where you kill enemies, you get a little bit of XP. It's not exactly like Dark Souls. Dark Souls, you know, you have like the souls, and like you have a number that keeps going up, and then you spend that on, you know, your abilities or whatever. At least that's how I remember it working. That might be wrong. But in Jedi Fallen Order, you basically just, you're awarded a little bit of XP depending on the enemy you kill. You have a bar, fills up, sort of like you're leveling up, and then it goes, you hit the end and it goes, hey, you have 1 skill point available. And you can, you know, keep going up if you wanted to save it for whatever reason. There's really no reason to save the ability points, other than once you get further into the trees, they require more than 1 point. So I think the maximum it requires is, at one point, is ever, maybe 3, but definitely 2. So, but other than that, there's really no reason to like save them. You may as well use them while you get them. But the reason that this is sort of Dark Souls-like is when the enemies kill you, you lose that XP, and the enemy, it is sort of in the enemy when you die. And so then that's where it sort of becomes very, I think Bloodborne was the one where an enemy would sort of hold on to that. So in Star Wars, the enemy literally glows. So it's very easy to distinguish, you know, that enemy killed me and has my XP. And I think in Bloodborne, you actually had to kill the enemy to get it back. But in Star Wars, all you gotta do is hit them. You just have to land 1 blow, 1 damaging blow, I should say. You can't, it's not just their stamina meter, which is how you wear down the enemies, but you have to actually do damage to them. And then that's the way you get it back. Which is very forgiving, which I like, because, you know, it's punishing in the sense that, you know, when you die, you still lose that XP and stuff, but it never really, to me anyway, and I played on not normal, and not very hard, but, you know, the hard mode, wherever it is. I think it's Jedi Master I played on, and then Grand Master is the top one. So I played on Jedi Master, and I'm playing again right now on Grand Master, which is going pretty well. But I would definitely recommend people playing it on Master, if you can. I mean, you know, it doesn't matter if you play it on easier difficulty or anything like that, but I feel like the game is the most balanced after playing through Grandmaster a little bit here. I feel like on Jedi Master, that's where you get the sort of perfect balance between difficulty and the combat, and well, really that's about it. Like, that's sort of like that was my sweet spot for the difficulty. I felt like if I would go too much easier, then it would become too hack and slashy, where I could just, you know, keep wailing on enemies until they died. And any harder, I feel like it would have been maybe a little bit too punishing. You know, now that I'm playing it again on Grandmaster, I'm going through it super easy, and I'm dying way less than I was on Jedi Master, just because I'm pretty proficient at the game. But anyway, that's how the XP works and everything. One of the major complaints that people have had about this game, I guess, the biggest one has been load times for people. Now, I played on PC with an SSD, so I never ran into that. When I died in between deaths, I maybe waited 4 or 5 seconds or so. Like, I mean, really nothing. Like, I mean, it was pretty instant. I would die, little respawn thing would come up, press X to respawn, and then I'm good to go. But apparently on consoles, it is atrocious. So I guess if you're going to play it on a console, beware of that, or wait for a patch to come out. I think they are working on a patch, but I'm not sure about that. And then just from videos I've seen online and just other people talking about this game that I've seen online, it does seem like some people do think that the exploration can sometimes be a little too janky, for lack of a better word, and that's just mostly, which is weird because in my first playthrough of the game, where I was first going through, you know, beat it, rolled credits and stuff, I really didn't run into a whole lot of issues. I maybe ran into like maybe 2 or 3 zones, or little sections of a zone, not like the entire planet, but just a little section of like traversing that I thought was like really clunky, or I would just die over and over again, or I just didn't know where the game wanted me to go. But I didn't run into a whole lot of issues. But strangely enough, when I went back to complete the game, so on my Jedi Master playthrough, I have 100% of the game. I have discovered all the maps, I've gotten all the collectibles and everything. When I went back, that's sort of when I started running into more of those issues, where I was falling through the world after I jumped from a vine, or the AI was acting sort of weird. So I thought that was definitely really interesting, and now that I'm even on Grandmaster, I've been running into more issues, so I'm not really sure what is going on. It might have just been on my first playthrough I was playing a lot more carefully, so then I wasn't running into those issues as much. That's sort of my best guess for that one. But people do have are complaining about that, and with videos and stuff I've seen online, I mean, you can't blame them. I mean, people are just, the puzzles aren't working, and sometimes they're a little, thankfully in this game actually, when you fall off a ledge or something similar to that, you don't die. You spawn just a little ways back, like usually right before the jump or whatever it is you're doing, and you lose a little bit of your health, which can be annoying if you're what am I trying to say? If you keep dying over and over again, it can be really frustrating because you can go from full health to very little health. But thankfully, I don't think you can die in those modes. That might be wrong, but I don't think you can die. I think it'll just put you at like a sliver of health, and you can just, you know, keep doing that jump and puzzle over and over again. So yeah, I know that those are sort of the 2 biggest areas people have complaints of. I haven't heard too many complaints over the combat. I liked the combat quite a bit. You know, I liked it. At first I was playing it very, or at least how I play Souls games, I guess. I played it not parrying at all. I almost never parried. I always dodge rolled out of the way, because that's just sort of, I was like, well, of course, if I can do that, why wouldn't I do that? But the game definitely wants you to parry, and in Grandmaster, now that I'm good at that, and I know how to do that and when to do it, it makes the game much easier. On the smaller enemies, you can do a parry, and you will then kill the enemy in one hit. And actually, a lot of the like base level enemies do die in one hit. And then the bigger enemies, if you do a perfect parry on the right attack or at the right moment, then sometimes you can even get an instant kill, which is, you know, a pretty good feeling, you know, especially if before you're just like wailing on them for a while. And that pretty much sums it for Star Wars, at least. Overall, I love the game. It's very well could be my game of the year. I'm not 100% sure on that yet, but I think it's incredible. I think if you even kind of like Star Wars, it's worth it. I hope in the future, I don't know if they'll continue Cal's story or not, but really regardless, I would love to see them make another game, because if they can take this game and put just a little bit more polish on it, I think it's going to be an amazing game, and I think you'll be able to take away a lot of those complaints people have and like really turn it into like the perfect Star Wars game. But I think this is the closest version of a perfect Star Wars, at least Jedi game that we've had in a very, 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 very long time. And I guess I'll just do it very quickly, so maybe just for the next minute or two I'll talk about it. So this will be spoilers. If you do not want to be spoiled about anything about story or characters for Star Wars, that I'd mute it for a minute or two. So that's your warning. But anyway, the story that was going around, not really, I don't know if it's really a story, but more people have been really complaining about it, and I would have too if I would have seen this. But in Fallen Order, the big finale is you're breaking into this prison and you're fighting, you know, the enemy that you've had for the whole game and everything, and you know everything's coming to its conclusion, and then there's a big reveal, and that reveal is that Darth Vader, you know, the face of Star Wars, comes in and starts fighting you. And that was such a cool moment, just having like, you know, you thought this was like a sort of self-contained story, and it is, but you thought this was sort of, you know, there was no real repercussions on the greater Star Wars story. But then you get the face of Star Wars, Darth Vader, right there. And it was just really cool. And the game does such a good job at showing you just how strong Darth Vader is. He just toys with you like you're nothing. You know, you've been playing this game, and at this point, you know, you have all your powers, you may have all your skill point upgrades, all that kind of stuff. And then Vader comes in and he destroys you. He is stronger than you. He's better with the lightsaber than you. He's better than with the Force than you. He's stronger. And it just like, even as a Jedi, it's sort of like in Rogue One, that last scene where the corridor scene where Vader is just wrecking rebels. He's just destroying them. He's just wiping the entire floor with them. And you're a Jedi, and you're supposed to be able to fight this great evil and, you know, fight the dark side. You know, Darth Vader is like the quintessential, you know, dark side character other than Palpatine, and he just destroys you. You don't even have a chance. Like he just absolutely annihilates you. And the big problem that people have been having is that apparently, thankfully I didn't watch really any ads for this game. I think I maybe saw like the announcement trailer or whatever, and then I didn't watch anything else. I usually don't watch any trailers just because I don't, if I know I'm going to play something or watch something, then I don't need to watch a bunch of stuff. I just need to see, you know, the first one where, you know, they're announcing, hey, this is the project, here's when it's coming out. And I'm going to be like, cool, thanks. See you when it gets out. But apparently there was an ad where they show that Darth Vader's a character in this game. And people are upset about that because that they're like, oh, well, I guess Darth Vader's going to show up. And I have to agree with those people. Like, what were they thinking that they could ruin that kind of moment? You know, it was such a cool moment for me because I didn't know that that was going to happen. You know, if I knew Darth Vader was in the game, I would just kind of have to assume, you know, by the time I got to that moment in the game, that like, oh, this is where he's going to show up. You know, this is what's going to happen. And to have that spoiled in an advertisement, like, I swear some companies just do not understand how to make advertisements. And I guess I get it from the whoever made the advertisements perspective of being like, this is Star Wars, we need to sell it. We need to show Darth Vader so people who are just like, oh, I know what a Star War is, will go out and buy the game because Darth Vader's in it and cool, look at Darth Vader. So I guess I get that part, but it ruined such a good moment in the game, and I just can't imagine being one of those people who's playing the game and you see, or even before you're playing the game and you see that ad and all of a sudden now you know Darth Vader is in the game. So really that's all I have to say about it. I think that was a really shitty thing to do, but what are you gonna do, I guess? Just don't watch trailers, I guess. Alright, so now I guess we'll go on to the second portion of the podcast. And you know what? Let's actually save the Pokemon discussion for another one, since I don't exactly have a topic lined up for the next one. We'll save that one. But I guess give me, if anybody listens to this, give me your topic ideas, I guess. I think, or really just any feedback in general would be helpful for this. I don't really know a time that I'm going to aim for. I think if it's just me talking, then it's going to be hard to fill a ton of time, at least at first. So we'll try to split them up a bit, at least in the beginning here, and, you know, get my feet wet and actually get a title for this podcast. But yeah, so give me your topics. I might even try to do maybe like some actual research and do like a weekly roundup of some news that I thought was interesting or have an opinion on, with games or whatever. I could also maybe do a discussion about Game of the Year. Don't know if I'd be able to make a top 10 because I honestly don't know if I've played 10 games this year, but we'll see. Maybe I can make my best 5 games of the year. I guess also let me know if, if any of my bestest friends are listening. If you want to come join on this podcast adventure with me, then let me know. Or if just anybody thinks I should have a guest, just to sort of vary things up, get different opinions, all that kind of stuff. And I'm not opposed to just having guests on occasionally, even if it's not a forever thing. But yeah, that's about it. Definitely got to try to think of a name for this podcast. I think tentatively, I guess we'll go with 1s and 0s, unless I get a better idea in the next, however long it takes me to post this. But yeah. So, yeah, that was pretty much my thoughts on Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and what this podcast will be. So yeah, thanks for listening. Let me know what you think. And watch me on Twitch, because I don't know if I'm going to make YouTube videos, but twitch.tv/CoreHoundGames, youtube.com/ I think CoreHoundGames, but I don't know about that one. Thanks, bye!